Welcome to Books and Bites, where books get smarter and learning gets faster. Stay tuned for crisp, insightful summaries that fit into your busy life. Today, we're tackling Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big one, folks. We're diving into why some civilizations ended up with all the cool stuff, technology, power, you name it, while others didn't.
It's a question that's puzzled historians and scientists for ages. And what's so fascinating is that Diamond just throws out those old theories about some groups of people being inherently superior.
Right.
Nope. He says it all boils down to geography and the environment.
Right. Talk about a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah.
He actually starts with this simple question posed to him by a Papua New Guinean politician named Yali, wanted to know why Europeans had so much more cargo, and that's his word for wealth and technology, than his people did.
That question sparks a journey back in time, 11,000 years ago to be exact.
Oh, well.
Diamond paints this picture of humanity back then. Everybody's pretty much equal. Using stone tools, hunting and gathering.
Okay.
We were all starting from the same point, the same blank slate.
Okay, so everyone's starting equal, but then things changed drastically.
Yeah.
And this is where Diamond uses these Polynesian societies as a sort of living laboratory.
Right.
These folks, all descended from common ancestors, end up scattered across these Pacific islands with crazy different environments.
And the results are striking.
Yeah.
Take the Maori people who settled in New Zealand. Their island was large, fertile. They developed agriculture, complex social structures, even warfare.
Wow.
But then you've got the Maori people. On these smaller, resource-poor islands, they remain hunter-gatherers. Their development just stalled. Same ancestors, totally different outcomes.
So you're telling me that where you land geographically can literally shape the destiny of your entire civilization. That's kind of terrifying, isn't it?
It really highlights the power of geography in shaping human history.
Yeah.
And it gets even more dramatic when we fast forward to the Spanish conquest of the Incas.
Oh, yeah. Pizarro and his handful of conquistadors taking down this entire empire. Talk about an underdog story.
Yeah.
Except the underdog had some seriously unfair advantages.
The Incas, despite their impressive civilization, had never seen horses. Can you imagine the terror of seeing these massive beasts thundering toward you?
Oh, gosh.
And then there were the steel swords against clubs and slings.
Right.
Not exactly a fair fight.
And don't forget the invisible weapon disease.
Right.
The Incas were already weakened by smallpox, a European disease that they had no immunity to.
Right.
It was basically one-sided biological warfare.
This is exactly what Diamond calls the lethal gift of livestock. We'll get to that later.
Sure.
But it shows how germs, along with guns and steel, were intertwined in shaping history.
Yeah.
But to really understand those elements, we need to go back to the very foundation. The rise of agriculture.
Ah, yes, farming, the invention that changed everything. It's easy to forget, in our world of grocery stores and instant meals, just how revolutionary farming was. It meant food surpluses, which led to larger populations, specialized jobs, even the luxury of time to think up new inventions.
You're hitting on a crucial point. And once again, geography plays a starring role. Think of the Fertile Crescent, the birthplace of agriculture. They had it easy. Plants like wheat and barley were practically begging to be domesticated.
So it's like they won the geographic lottery, while other places like Papua New Guinea were stuck with less cooperative plants.
Yes. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes people chose not to farm,
Really?
even when they could have. In areas with abundant wild food, farming seemed like way too much work.
Interesting.
It wasn't always about a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it was about choosing the easier path.
Makes sense. Why toil in the fields if nature's providing a buffet? But even when farming did take off, let's be real, domesticating plants wasn't a walk in the park.
Absolutely. It was a long, slow process of trial and error, unknowingly selecting for desirable traits. Imagine early farmers selecting for wheat that didn't shatter easily. Seems counterintuitive, right? Shattering is great in the wild, but terrible when you're trying to harvest.
It's like they accidentally stumbled onto these agricultural breakthroughs. And speaking of plants, why did Eurasian crops become the global superstars? Was there something special about them?
Eurasia had a head start with a wider variety of domesticable plants. Think wheat, barley, rice. But there's another key factor. Remember that east-west axis? It allowed plants to spread easily across similar climates.
Uh-huh. The east-west axis strikes again. It's like the express lane for innovation, while other continents were stuck in traffic.
Now let's add domesticated animals to the mix. Here, Diamond introduces this curious concept, the Anna Karenina principle.
Wait, what? Tolstoy and farm animals? How do those connect?
It's all about the conditions for success. Tolstoy famously wrote, "Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." Diamond applies this to animal domestication. There are tons of ways an animal can be undomesticable, but only a few ways it can work.
So there are a lot of zebras out there, but not a lot of horses, metaphorically speaking.
Exactly. Zebras might look like horses, but their temperament and their quirks make them impossible to domesticate. Eurasia, on the other hand, had a whole menagerie, perfect for farming transportation. Even warfare, horses, cows, pigs, sheep, they had it all.
So they had all the ingredients they needed
You did.
to really build something big
Yeah,
and powerful.
exactly.
All right, so Eurasia's got the winning combo, good crops, useful animals, and that east-west axis superhighway for spreading ideas.
Right.
But how does all that lead to guns, germs, and steel?
That's where things get really interesting. Remember that east-west axis we keep talking about?
Uh-huh.
It wasn't just good for plants and animals.
Okay.
It allowed the rapid spread of ideas and technology across Eurasia.
So while the Americas were stuck in their geographic lanes, Eurasians were swapping knowledge like trading cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Writing systems, metalworking techniques, even political philosophies could travel much easier in Eurasia. It's like a continent-wide brainstorming session, boosting innovation at warp speed.
Okay, that explains the guns and steel part. But what about the germs? Didn't you say something about a lethal gift of livestock?
Ah, yes. Remember how smallpox just ravaged the Incas?
Yeah.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. Living in close quarters with their domesticated animals, Eurasians were exposed to a whole slew of nasty diseases over centuries.
So they were basically fighting a constant germ warfare, building up immunity along the way.
Exactly. But when Europeans set sail and encountered other populations, they brought those germs with them. For people with no prior exposure, it was like an alien invasion.
Devastating. But it makes you wonder, how did technology spread so quickly across Eurasia? Was it all copying from neighbors? Or were there brilliant minds coming up with stuff on their own?
It was a mix of both. Sure, borrowing ideas, what Diamond calls diffusion, was huge, but isolated societies like the Chinese also made their own breakthroughs.
So it wasn't a one-size-fits-all model for progress.
Right. And here's a curveball. Technology wasn't always born out of necessity. Diamond argues that innovation often happens when societies have the resources and the time to tinker and experiment.
So it's not just about needing a better mousetrap. It's about having the free time to dream up a better mousetrap.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to those power structures that emerged from agriculture and surplus resources. Rulers needed ways to consolidate their power and maintain control.
Okay, so how did they go from farmers to emperors? What was their playbook?
Think of it like a three-pronged approach. First, religion provided a divine mandate for their rule.
Okay.
Second, controlling food distribution gave them economic leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And third, armies, well, they provided the muscle to enforce it all.
So geography sets the stage, agriculture creates the surplus, and boom, you've got the ingredients for empires and power struggles.
Yeah.
It all ties back to Yali's question about those cargo differences.
You got it. And Diamond doesn't stop there. He goes on to apply these same principles to different regions across the globe. Want to see how China, Europe, Africa, Australia, and New Guinea all fit into this grand puzzle?
All right, we've covered a lot of ground already, from fertile crescents to lethal livestock. Now let's put on our explorer hats and see how Diamond's theories play out in different corners of the world. First, stop the ancient powerhouse of China. What made them so unique?
Well, as you might expect, geography played a big role. China's fertile river valleys and relatively unified landscape allowed for early agriculture and a strong centralized state.
Mm-hmm.
They had a head start in population growth, technology, and political organization, kind of like a well-oiled machine.
So they were able to consolidate their power and resources more effectively than other regions that were, shall we say, a bit more chaotic.
Exactly. And this allowed them to focus on advancements in areas like writing metallurgy and even political philosophy. Think of Confucius and his ideas about social harmony. Those ideas emerged from this unique environment of early unity and stability.
Okay, so China's got a head start, thanks to geography and a knack for organization. But what about Europe? They weren't exactly known for playing nicely together for most of their history.
You're right. Europe's landscape is a jumbled mess of mountains, peninsulas, and islands.
Yeah.
This actually fueled fierce competition between different states. It was often messy and destructive, but it also pushed them to innovate like crazy.
So their lack of unity was actually their secret weapon. It forced them to constantly adapt and improve.
Exactly. This constant rivalry led to advancements in shipbuilding weaponry and even political systems. And eventually this competitive spirit spilled over into exploration and, well, let's be honest, colonization as they raced to grab resources and global dominance.
And that brings us to the flip side of the coin. What about those regions that face tougher challenges? Africa, Australia, New Guinea,
Yeah.
they didn't exactly have it easy, did they?
Those regions illustrate the challenges that Diamond's theory highlights. Africa, for example, despite its vast size and resources, faced geographical barriers, like deserts and rainforests, hindering communication and the spread of technology. Plus, some areas lack suitable animals for domestication, slowing their progress.
And Australia, New Guinea, they seem even more isolated on the world map.
They are. And they also lacked that crucial combination of domesticable plants and animals. This really hampered their ability to develop agriculture and the complex societies that come with it. It's like trying to bake a cake without flour or eggs. You're just not going to get very far.
So Diamond's book really challenges the way we think about history, doesn't it? It's not about some groups being inherently better, but about these deep-rooted environmental factors that shape the trajectories of different civilizations.
Absolutely. It forces us to rethink those old assumptions and look at the bigger picture. It's about understanding the role of geography and history in shaping the world we live in today, and using that knowledge to approach global inequality with more empathy and understanding.
It's a powerful message. And a reminder that we're all connected in this crazy journey called human history. If environmental differences, rather than inherent human differences, contributed to the disparities we see today, maybe we should rethink our approach to bridging those gaps.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a question that should challenge us as individual societies and as a global community. And that's the beauty of Guns, Germs, and Steel. It sparks these critical conversations and inspires us to work towards a more just and equitable future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an adventure.
Absolutely. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to Books and Bites, where books get smarter and learning gets faster. We'll see you next time.